Siskel and Ebert review Paul Newman leading the race for the atomic bomb in Fat Man and Little Boy. A young actress finds herself stalked by a fictional killer in Madman. And Matthew Modine faces the pressures of medical school in Gross Anatomy. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert.
The largest collection of nothing in the entire world. Make them work, then you got something. An irresistible something.
Paul Newman is an Army general whose job is to supervise the scientists who will build America's first atomic bomb. That's in Fat Man and Little Boy, one of 5 new movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Our first film is called Fat Man and Little Boy. Those were the nicknames of the atomic bombs that would be exploded upon Japan in 1945. And this is the story of the military development of the bomb, with Paul Newman playing the Army general in charge of the project, leading a bunch of brilliant scientists who are forever questioning what they are building. Here's Newman's welcoming speech to the scientists in New Mexico.
You are here to go beyond the theoretical, the speculative, the fanciful. You are here to harness your God-given talent, your mind, your energy, in the practical pursuit of one thing, a military weapon.
The main civilian player in the drama is scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer, played by Dwight Schultz. He abhors the need for ultra-secrecy.
These kids are used to pinning their best ideas up on a bulletin board so that everybody can see it. Ideas are community property. Free access to information is a matter of principle.
You force my hand on this, and all right, you'll win. There won't be any free discussion because there won't be anybody left to have it.
The best part of the film is when it deals with the issue of whether a military man can withhold the use of a new weapon.
Perhaps we can find some other use for this work. Fascism's dead.
You mean in Europe? What do they think the Japanese are doing, shooting squirrels?
No, they're not shooting squirrels, and that's not the issue.
What is the issue?
They don't have the technology. They're not capable of it. So, if we don't need it, why make it?
But the film goes awry with its female characters, including a nurse, Laura Dern, attracted to a young scientist, John Cusack.
Tonight, I want to make love. And I want a future. That's what I really want. For you and me.
So do I.
That relationship seems really corny, as does the extramarital relationship that scientist Oppenheimer tries to enjoy. Those scenes really break the mood of tension and remind us that we're watching a conventional movie. Fat Man and Little Boy was directed by Roland Joffe, who made the fine Cambodian drama The Killing Fields, and that film offered no such concessions to conventional entertainment. Fat Man and Little Boy does, and that forces me to give it a marginal thumbs down.
I give it a thumbs down too, Gene, and mine isn't marginal. For me, one of the big problems of the movie is that the conflict between the Oppenheimer character and General Groves, played by Paul Newman, isn't really about anything. They're kind of arguing with each other, and when you really listen to what they're saying, they're not really saying anything. They're just going through the motions of having disagreements about things.
But you know what it's about.
You know what it's about, but you know why you know what it's about? Because you saw a movie in 1980, and I did too, called The Day After Trinity, which was a documentary on the same material. It obviously inspired all of the art direction of this film. It inspired the entire screenplay of this film, and it was done much, much better because it wasn't distracting us with all of this ridiculous material about mistresses and girlfriends and hospital stuff, and all of that other unnecessary
Now
stuff.
you're onto it. When they bring in the girlfriends and all that stuff, I'm thinking, are they making this film to try and appeal to a younger audience by having Laura Dern is the one nurse. She's the only real nurse that we meet in the whole film. She's trotted out to have a romance with the young guy.
Right, it's ridiculous.
And then she pulled off the screen.
Meanwhile, there is never any real conflict that involves the personalities and ideas of Oppenheimer and the general. That is just not there at all. And as far as appealing to the younger audience is concerned, I know that historically a lot of these scientists at Los Alamos were young. That's the fact. Right. But the other fact, in this movie, the actors they get to play them are so young that when they're wearing their fedora hats and their rimless glasses and smoking their cigarettes, it's dress-up time. It's like kids in the senior class play.
Yeah.
I mean, John Cusack is a fine actor. He's 10 years too young to be in this movie.
Well, I think that the problem is that the script just doesn't play it tough enough. This is a very real, immediate episode in our history and should have been played a little stronger, particularly by Jaffe, who did The Killing Fields. I'm surprised at him.
The Day After Trinity is available on home video, and anybody who's interested in the story should probably see that movie and not Fat Man and Little Boy. Okay, next movie. And our next movie sounds like another routine horror film, and it's advertised like another routine horror film, but actually it's not routine at all. It's a clever and sneaky thriller named I'm Madman, about a woman who likes to read scary books until she discovers that one of the books seems to be coming true in her own life. The woman is played by Jenny Wright, and she works in a used bookshop. She is attracted to the work of a little-known writer named Malcolm Brand until he turns up in her kitchen one night. Is this reality or a fantasy? Her boyfriend is a cop, and of course, like all cops in movies like this, he thinks she's dreaming everything.
So what? Scared yourself again and lured me over with the cold beer so you wouldn't have to be alone?
Courtney.
Honey, how can you read this crap?
I don't know. It's some thing. It's like potato chips. I can't stop.
The fantasies in this man's books are so strong they seem to enter into her life.
You like the music?
Why are you doing this to me?
Lovely.
And the weirdo in those scenes is special makeup man Randall William Cook, who had the dream of every makeup man in this movie. He not only designed the makeup for the mad and peculiar Mr. Brand, but also wears it. He talked the director into hiring him to play the role. In the movie, Brand is a mad scientist who dreams of creating a new race, half human, half jackal, and he has some emotional difficulties around that. For example, when a woman tells him he's ugly, he cuts off his face, and now it appears that he's trying to steal other people's best features in order to stitch himself back together again. This is all, of course, completely ridiculous, but I'm Madman has a lot of fun with its bizarre story, and so did I.
I had fun about half the way.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the setup of it. This actress, Jenny Wright, she's very, very good in a plain kind of non-star way, so that what seems to be happening to us has a reality to it. I mean, she's just gobbling up these books and reading them and really getting into it, and she knows she shouldn't. It's like, you know, having a food addiction or something. She's just all, as soon as she gets into her apartment, she's got to start reading, and that's fun, and the boyfriend is fun. But then it just got to gross out time for me. When they started all the cutting up, I checked out in terms of my interest. The jackal bit I thought was pretty cheap by comparison with the special.
Well, you see, I have a special attitude toward. You're talking now, when you talk about the jackal bit, you're talking about the fact that they use stop-action animation in order to create this strange creature that runs around the room and attacks everyone.
Yeah.
I like moments in movies where you can see that they're special effects. In other words, that the humans are standing there and this stop-action animation thing is happening, and so the thing leaps around. I enjoy the artifice of it, and so that tickled me. I would have liked it less if it had been better, if you know what I mean.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, but I thought that the movie, at the same time, was sort of credible in its setup. And so when this thing swung out into the other field, it just didn't, it wasn't interesting. But for me, I was much more annoyed by just how gross it got toward the end. It's not a bad horror film. It's cute in the beginning.
But Gene, a lot of movies are a lot more gross than this one, and you're going to see a lot of them around Halloween, too, that's for sure.
Well, I won't recommend them either. Coming up next, a dissection of the first year of medical school in the comic drama called Gross Anatomy.
I'm asking a question that any student in the 8th month of anatomy class should be able to answer.
The next film is called Gross Anatomy, and what the movie Paper Chase did for the first year of law school, gross anatomy would like to do for the first year of medical school. The movie isn't all that serious, however, mixing traditional story elements such as a romance between a pair of students, Matthew Modine and Daphne Zuniga.
Pick a partner. Practice on someone else.
Forget it.
Another key relationship is between the happy-go-lucky Modine and his tough anatomy professor, played by Christine Lottie.
Do you think you'll be able to give me these examples tomorrow?
I'd bet my life on it.
Okay. How about you, Ms. Rohrbach? Would you bet your life on it?
Yes, I think you'll be able to answer.
Well, good. So we're all willing to bet our lives on Mr. Slovak's knowledge. Tomorrow, every member of this group will be graded according to Mr. Slovak's response.
And that drama plays out with a surprise in the quiz the next day.
Go.
The pericardial, the esophageals, the intercostals.
How many pairs of intercostals?
9.
You guessing?
Am I right?
Yeah.
Then I'm not guessing.
Now, my problem with this film is that I don't think it takes its subject as seriously as it should. These are future doctors, and how they are reacting to their work in the late 1980s isn't really dealt with. I'm not asking for a documentary, I suppose, but I am asking for a little more than an older teen comic drama grafted onto med school. Matthew Modine gives a rich performance. He alone makes the film watchable, but not enough for me to recommend it.
Oh, I liked it a lot more than you did, Gene, and I would also recommend 2 other performances. Daphne Zuniga and also Christine Lottie is just wonderful as the professor in that scene, which I don't want to give away, where she finally reveals a secret about herself in order to challenge this guy to be as good as he could be. Yes, I was surprised. I did not know that was coming, and I was surprised. But even apart from that, one of the things that I really liked about this movie was the way it portrays the pressure and the sheer exhaustion that these people are under. They are working, they have 500 pages a day that they're allegedly supposed to memorize.
70, you're off by 430.
No. 3,500 pages a week divided by 7 is 500. I worked it out. It's not 70, it's 500. We'll get back to that.
We'll check it out.
Back at the end of the show. We'll check that out.
We'll see who's right.
Okay, but apart from that, they're exhausted. They're trying to remember all this stuff. One kid is taking speed to try to stay up all night. It brought back for me the feelings in college that I had of anxiety when you're taking an exam and you don't know the material and you're going to fail and humiliate yourself and disappoint your family. All of those feelings are there, and for me, they all work.
Well, they don't all work for me. Some of the stuff is there. It's true in any college situation. I just thought they have the rich kid it turns out to be not such a hot student after all, and the romance between the best-looking guy, Modine, and the best-looking girl, Zuniga, was a little pat, a little obvious, a little... I think it undersold itself.
Well,
in other words,
I mean,
the most interesting thing...
They even get together for a whole year because they're working so hard, they don't have time to have a romance except for one night.
The way the movie...
is realistic,
well,
I think.
They come back at the end, obviously.
Oh, of course they do, but summer vacation.
Of course they do. I mean, that's the problem with it. I mean, the subject is fascinating. I mean, it is obviously a very tough road. I just don't think the film... I think the film sort of chickened out by making it conventional at the end.
No, I liked it a lot more than you did. Coming up next, Story of Women, with Isabelle Huppert making a black market living in France. Story of Women, and it takes place in wartime France, where a very stubborn and determined woman tries to get rich by working outside the law as an abortionist and a black marketeer. The woman is played by Isabelle Huppert, that most solemn-faced and brittle of French actresses, who in this scene begins to see a way out of her life of poverty and boredom.
Tiens, je te le donne. Je te dois bien ça, ça a marché.
Ça y est?
Tu veux pas savoir le sang que j'ai perdu. J'ai cru que je me vidais. Ouvre-le.
Under the Nazi occupation of France, she discovers some professions are more successful than others.
Ça se voit pas alors que je tapine.
Ah bah dis donc. Les hommes doivent vous regarder alors.
Ben oui, les putes, c'est fait pour ça.
The woman's life of deception can continue only so long before the French puppet government decides to make her a moral example.
Madame Latour?
C'est moi?
Story of Women was directed by Claude Chabrol, who specializes in films about crime and guilt and redemption. But there is no redemption in this film, which is unrelenting in its desire to show us a woman who masks her ordinary feelings and allows greed and self-interest to rule her life. Huppert is brilliant in the role, which is to say she is hateful in almost every frame, and it was that coldness at the heart of the film and at the heart of her character that finally pushed me away from this movie. The woman is so calculating that the film is finally only about her personality, and any larger issues of right and wrong get lost.
Well, not for me. I think that one of the most interesting elements is that you have this Vichy government in France, which is complicitous with the Nazis, standing in moral judgment of this woman who is trying to basically stay alive, when the question is that there's no moral fiber in the country. And I think that the question of how much moral fiber is in her versus how much moral fiber is in the land is a very interesting issue.
But the problem is he never sets up the movie in order to really ask that question. If they had made her into someone who was struggling in order to protect her family, or in order to make a protest, or in order to make a statement, but they see her as completely a person with tunnel vision who sees only in terms of her own greed and her own self-need. So therefore, she doesn't make a contrast to the actions of
I think in the beginning she isn't that way. I think toward the end, I think she is. She's intoxicated by what she's trying to do. In the beginning, I think she just sees it as something to be doing. I don't think I think there is a need there.
But even at the end, even after she's in jail and it's clear that she's headed for the gallows, she's saying things like, "I want to be a music hall performer." You see, she just never understands her
Well,
position.
she doesn't expect what's going to happen to her that is going to happen. This is based on a true case, and I was fascinated by it. I'm interested in that whole period of wartime France and the moral dilemmas that people were caught in, particularly the government itself.
I will give you this. I will give you that it is a very good performance by Isabelle Huppert, and well-directed film. It's just that it was so cold that I just couldn't.
It was not a warm time in history, Roger. Coming up next, an old hermit is the only man who could save a remote island from disaster in When the Whales Came.
That creature must be saved. We must get him back into the water. And then we must drive them all back out to see where they belong.
This film is called When the Whales Came, a Save the Whales fable set in a remote English island at the outbreak of World War I. The story is about whether a couple of kids and a strange old man can prevent the village fishermen from slaughtering the whales for food. The gimmick here is that 70 years ago, on a nearby island, other fishermen chose to slaughter some whales, and the villagers were driven from their island in a plague. Now, on this island, when some more whales are grounded, the townspeople receive a warning from the man who survived the original episode.
They're going to kill them.
They'll have to kill me first. That creature must be saved. We must get him back into the water.
That's Paul Scofield, is the man known as the Birdman, and much of the movie is about his warm relationship with a couple of sweet island children.
Yes, there are ghosts on Samson. All the guilty men of Samson. And my poor father with him. Don't you never go near that island. Never, do you hear?
I'm sorry, Mr. Woodcock. I didn't mean to.
I know. I just don't want to lose you, that's all.
When the Whales Came has a fine English cast, but a predictable story. The town forgets its past, and the children and the strange old man come to its rescue. You can't help but think you've seen this movie before every step of the way.
That's the way I felt, too, Gene, even despite the performances, especially by Helen Mirren as the mother of one of those children.
Right.
This movie is so gloomy.
Yeah.
Noble, yes, but gloomy. I mean, the townspeople are gloomy, the sky is gloomy, the island is gloomy, and it has the basic thing that you see in most of these movies, which is that the townspeople always look like a bunch of extras who've been dressed in old coats and things from the junk store. They always appear over the hill when they're needed, 47 people with pitchforks, and then when they're not needed, they all run over the hill again. You never see where they live. They never have lives of their own. They're just a mob, you know.
It's like that nurse that Laura Dern played in Fat Man, a Little Boy.
Just turns up in order to perform a function, then leaves again. And the subplots, like the father who goes off to the war and then he comes back from the war, has nothing at all to do with the whales. Now, I'm in favor of saving the whales, but I don't think the cause is going to be helped by making it boring and depressing and dreary and with all this false nobility so that you sit there thinking, I don't know if I'm, you know, this is
Well,
the kind of movie where you expect them to pass the collection plate.
Yeah, it really is boring. The most interesting thing are those narwhals and those horns that come out of their heads. I mean, it's fabulous. But other than that, the people are boring.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs down for Fat Man and Little Boy, an unfocused and unexciting story about the birth of the atomic bomb. A split decision on I, Madman, which I enjoyed as an offbeat, entertaining horror film. Gene liked the setup, but not the payoff. Another disagreement on Gross Anatomy, the movie about the first year of med school. I thought it was much more moving and convincing than Gene did. And another disagreement on Story of Women, the story of an abortionist in World War II France. I thought it was too cold. Gene thought that was appropriate. And finally, 2 more thumbs down for the dreary, gloomy, sanctimonious When the Whales Came. And so my #1 recommendation this week would certainly be Gross Anatomy and then I, Madman.
And for me, it's a Story of Women. I think it's a real strong picture.
One thing we should mention, you know, with movies coming out on video so quickly, like Batman and so forth, I, Madman is going to be on video in November.
Right.
And another thing we should mention...
I knew you were going to get to that.
I was absolutely right. We looked it up. They do have to study 3,500 pages a week, 500 pages a day. My math was flawless. My memory was perfect, and you were absolutely wrong.
The only thing you missed the boat on was the movie. That's it for this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more new films, including Immediate Family, a baby adoption drama starring James Woods and Glenn Close. Also the drama Dad, starring Jack Lemmon as the father of Ted Danson. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.
Snowcaps, Raisinets, and Goobers. 3 big box office hits starring Nestle Milk Chocolate. Moviegoers give them a definite 2 thumbs up. Rice-A-Roni, the San Francisco treat. Now with 30 flavors, you can serve it every day for a month and never serve the same dish twice. Johnny Cat is America's premium cat litter. And now with our new drawstring litter box liners, Johnny Cat and Little Privacy is all any cat needs. Give your home a splash of color and a scent of magic with Color Sense waste bags by Ruffy's. Perfect for the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen. Color Sense.